Sunder.
Thank you very much. Thanks for inviting me. Sunder Katwala from British Future. It's an independent think tank. It's non-partisan. It has a vision of what we'd like to see, which is a confident, inclusive, welcoming and fair society. I think most people could agree on that being where we'd like to get to. But what we try to do is understand and engage to and talk to people who don't feel confident about a shared future for our country, who feel anxious about where we're going, how fast it's changed, how we're going to get there, and try and engage people who don't already feel confident about Britain on the way in which we might build a shared confidence for the future. So that's where I'm coming from. What does integration mean to me? I mean, we can map it and measure it and study it and collect the data on all sorts of things, and it's very complicated and nuanced, as we've been hearing, but ultimately, it's something you've got to feel. And the thing you've got to feel is integral to the society that you're in. That's what integration is about. And what would make me feel integral or not to my society? I think there are some real tangible things about opportunity, a fair chance, a decent school. If I apply for a job, would I get an interview if I was qualified? And the sorts of things we can measure and so on. But also I think there are things that just are much more felt like that. Does this feel like it's my country just as much as it is everybody else's? Do I feel that about other people? Do they feel that about me? And there would have been times in the past where if you were Catholic, you wouldn't feel your society felt that about you if you were Jewish, or if you were Black and Asian a generation or two ago. If you're Muslim today, you might not feel that other people think you've got an equal sense of citizenship. Equally, there might be people who used to feel that 30 or 40 years ago, and they feel that's gone away from them. They've actually been left behind, from the white majority. Maybe they felt left behind, and it doesn't feel like the society belongs to them anymore. And I think having that conversation about what it means to all feel that we share a society, what we each have to do, and how we get that is, for me, what integration is about. And it's difficult because, as everyone has been saying, our society is changing fast, and that's speeding up. And for me, I'm just over 40 years old, it's felt basically like many of those changes have been good. I was born in a hospital in Doncaster just over 40 years ago. My dad was born 4,000 miles away in Gujarat, India, and my mum had come to Britain from Cork in Ireland as a nurse, and they'd met, and the way the society has changed for me has often been good. There was a level of racism in the playground when I was 10 or 11 that you don't find in the playground for my 10-year-old daughter. But does my sense of confidence and security about that have to involve the sense of loss and dispossession for somebody else? Or not about that change, because my father-in-law will agree about all of those things being changes for the better. But he'll say, well, there are two sides of the coin, though, because are we, though, going to have a shared society or a divided and segregated one? Because I'm not sure it's going as well as you'd like to think. And he's right about that, too. So that's the conversation we need to have. Everyone's talked about how, nuanced it is. I want to talk about one of the bits of this that's difficult, and that's how the integration debate is linked to the immigration debate and what that means, and also, though, how the integration debate can help us, I think, with the immigration debate. Immigration's a difficult conversation because people disagree about it, and it polarises people on how they feel about it, because people feel differently about change. Some people like change. They think cultural and economic change. You come to a big city like London, the world speeds up and it feels better to you and you're excited about it. And some people feel absolutely opposite. You'll never convert somebody very easily to see it how you see it, if that's your feeling. And it polarises people in that way. And some people are worried that they don't feel they're allowed to talk about that feeling of loss or dislocation, and that they're not allowed to express their anxieties without being considered prejudiced. And other people think we don't talk about anything else. We talk about it too much, and if we talk about it, we'll let those prejudices in. So we have to decide how to have that conversation about it. And, there is a big sociology to this. If you're younger, if you got a degree, if you live in London or Manchester, you're probably on the, feel it's going okay side. And if you're, if you felt and seen your society change a lot over 40 or 50 years quite fast, you voted out in the referendum 40 years ago, you're going to vote out in this one, then you think they're sort of going on about diversity in London isn't really dealing with the sense you've got. How do we have that conversation? One of the things that interests me is that people do disagree about immigration, and we'll have to decide how to resolve that and what to choose. But most people on both sides can agree, actually, on a lot of things about integration. That with the immigration we're going to have, that does change our society, that is higher than it was, that is more spread out than it was, we can actually agree on what makes that work. What does the host society need to do? What do migrants themselves need to do? And the question underpinning immigration more than any other isn't for me what is the exact level and the number we have. That's a legitimate debate. It's not about the economics entirely of who pays what in and what's the tax benefit, what's it mean to business. The reason the immigration debate really matters and is an important debate, it's actually a debate about how do people become us. And how do people become us is a really good question, because if someone joins our society, my dad did it, he got on a plane, it was a week after Enoch Powell's Rivers of Blood speech, actually, so maybe it wasn't well reported in India, and he comes to this country. I want his kids to be just as much us as anybody else, and that's about what he had to do, as a migrant to this country, and how other people had to treat him or to treat me growing up in order to that to be the case. So I think how do people become us is a good question to ask if we can come up with a deal that makes it work fairly to the people who want to join our society and to the people who are already here. And people, I think, aren't confident we've had that conversation. They've had the conversation about who thinks it's good and who thinks it's bad, but have we had the conversation about how to make it work? So I want to talk about some of the things we should do now. It's very complicated, people feel differently about it, but I think we need to work more for integration and to bring about some changes and to do more to promote it, because it's probably true to say we've always had change, we've always had immigration, go back to the Huguenots, go back to the Windrush. We worried about were people going to be like us, and actually it turned out that we made it work over generations. But it is faster now. It is at a higher level, and we can't just cross our fingers and let it work. We've got to make it work better. I think the reason people find it difficult is there's a sense that, especially the immigration debate, more than the integration debate, it can sound very tough, it can sound very hostile, it can worry us that prejudice we think, that we left behind might come back. Because I think, the set of things that, the people who are most anxious are always saying about difference, it sounds something like this, I think. There's too many people coming in, too many minorities, look at how it's growing, too many migrants and so on. They're taking things that should be ours, jobs, housing, etc. They're not like us, and they don't want to be, and we're not allowed to talk about it, or we'll get called racist. And instead of saying, oh my God, I can't really have that conversation, I think we've got to say, let's talk about it. Let's talk about what we should do now. And you probably know, and I probably know, no one's going to put the world back to how it was 50 or 100 years ago. So should we talk about what we should do now to do something about it? And many, I think, of the sort of more liberal responses to those debates, too many people are like, oh, well, here's a graph, maybe it's not as many as you thought, we've always had it, or something. Or especially, they take what's ours, is to say something quite sort of economic about, well, I've done a study, and they pay in more than they take out, so in the end, here's some money. Or, diversity is good because the food's got better. The food's got better. It's the one thing we can agree on, the curry's staying. But it's a sort of way of avoiding the conversation. But all of those things, diversity is good, not bad, they pay in more than they take out. They're all stories that actually say the thing about them is they are good for us. And they are good for us is still a story about them and us. And I don't want stories about them and us. They are good for us. They are bad for us. I want stories about us now, going forward, the new us that we're actually all part of. And that's what I think we have to do. So what should we do now? I think we should change the language in which we talk about integration, because it really, really matters to people, because it's about the subject, how do we live together? how do we share our streets, our towns, our cities, our country. But the language of academics, policymakers and so on looking for things to measure of cohesion and integration and, you know, segregation and multiculturalism and so on, people don't really know what that's about. And they know what this is about, how we live together. So I think we should translate the debate about how we live together into the terms that people are already using. Because I think some people find this abstract policy language a way of evading, actually, difficult conversations that people want to have about, you know, issues like Rotherham and just talking in clear language. I mean, I don't understand why, you know, if you believe in a fair and equal society, you wouldn't uphold the law whoever was breaking it. But you need a clear conversation about what the rule is. So I think we should change the language. We need to make it about everyone. And this would be the new thing for me. And Ted was right about many ways in which the debate has changed. The integration debate has been about migrants and ethnic and faith minorities. It's been a debate about the minorities, for the minorities, by the minorities, and everyone else has said, you know, the minorities can have a debate about integration, hopefully they'll integrate. And we've got some of that right, because, you know, debates about multiculturalism, which were seen as about the minorities, really, you know, allowed ethnic and faith minorities in this country to feel a sense of Britishness. But the sense of Britishness that people created wasn't then a conversation that everyone else had been part of. So the missing majority in the integration debate, I think, the missing sense of being English in the debate about the United Kingdom, where you have a debate about Scotland and Wales, but where's the debate about England, the debate about, you know, Christian faith in a multi-faith society as well, that's been missing. And when people say, where does that fit in, you've got to have an answer to where it fits in. It's got to be a debate about everybody. I think we should fill the gap about what government should do. I think government has left a vacuum. It talks about British values, and I think that's good and important, but it's sort of, the last government had a policy that was integration is very important, it happens locally, good luck, local people. I hope it works out. I think the government's got to do more than that. It's got to set the vision, maybe it can collect some of the data when we decide what we really want to manage, and it can, you know, it can answer the question, how much integration do we need? It's a very liberal, open, diverse society. There's 60 million of us in it. We can have lots of ideas about our identity. We're going to have to agree on what our common citizenship demands of us, so that your citizenship is upheld because I respect it. That's what government should do. But we also need to agree together on what we need to share. So the last thing I think we need to do is bridge the contact gaps on integration. I think the problem is it's easy to have debates about faith diversity with people from different faiths who want to come to a conversation about different faiths. And they're the people you don't need to talk to. We actually are getting this right, I think, in lots of ways, in the classroom, in the colleges, in the university, and the kids are going to be okay. But actually, diverse Britain, it's young, it's urban, it's fast growing, and it's a long way away, sometimes geographically, from the whitest areas of our country. And we need to bridge the contact gaps. You know, Nadia on the Bake Off bridged the contact gap because it was a thing that everyone was watching, and suddenly, you know, people who've never met a Muslim actually were watching Nadia baking her cakes and crossing her fingers, and that bridges the gap. So I think we need to locate this in the frames that we can all share. We've done a lot of work specifically on the First World War, actually, and it surprises people a lot to know that the armies that fought in the First World War look more like the Britain of 2016 than the Britain of 1916. They look a lot more diverse than the army we've got today, and that's an interesting story about how we share more history than we think. I think we should talk about, in London, actually, about London being a global city, a European city, a British city, and an English city, actually, and show that London can have an English identity where everyone's invited to the party. So I think integration's got to be about everybody, and we haven't done that in the past. Thanks.